Boys, what is the UFC doing? You know, it seems like as of recently, they don't want to grow the company. They don't care about giving us any real good fight cards. You know, we'll get an occasional good fight card here and there. Occasional good pay-per-view. We'll get, you know, like a UFC 300, a UFC 308 type of card. Then they'll give us something like, you know, the Sean Strickland versus Dricus pay-per-view, the Jana Ribia versus Lemos fight card, you know. It does seem as of recently that they either give us a really good fight card or just an absolute terrible shit fight card. So, you know, I'm talking mainly right now for the UFC Vegas cards, you know, the non-pay-per-view cards. In my opinion, the UFC don't know how to do it no more. So I'm going to give the UFC 5 very simple steps. You know, maybe, you know, fuck it. We'll give them 6 simple steps on how to make some good quality non-pay-per-viewed fight cards, you know, literally speaking some free game for them. And then not only am I giving them all these tips, at the very end, I'm going to give them a full card of pretty much everything I say in this video, so stay tuned till then. But let's start it all off. We need to get out of the Apex. You know, a lot of people have been saying we need to get out of the Apex. The Apex is killing the UFC. It's not allowing them to grow. It's making them lazy. Yes, I do agree. We can't just cold turkey this thing. The UFC have been abusing the Apex. So if we just cut it off cold turkey right now, more likely than not, we're going to see some heavy withdrawal. So we're going to have to do it nice, slow and easy. And I have noticed the UFC have been getting out of the Apex more and more. But to start it off, we can always increase it or decrease it as we see fit. But right now, I want 2 Apex cards per month, 1 pay-per-view and 1 sold out arena. That's 1 card per week. You know, we can slowly integrate. You know, 1 week we get 2 Apex cards, the next week we get 1 Apex card and 2 sold out arenas. We can vary it as time goes on, where hopefully, you know, we're getting 2 sold out arenas, 1 Apex card and 1 pay-per-view. That would be ideal. And then eventually just phase out the Apex in general. Don't get me wrong, I would like to see the Apex maybe here and there, but definitely not as much as we've been seeing it as of late. But that's number 1. Get rid of the amount of times we see the Apex per month. Next up, I want to see in the co-main event and that 3rd fight on the main card, I want to see top 25 ranked fighters. It doesn't matter the weight division. I just want there to be some sort of stakes, you know, in the fights. Top 25 at the very least. I don't want to see a co-main event of a number 50th ranked fighter taking on the ranked 60th. You know, there needs to be some sort of depth, some sort of intrigue in these fights, and that goes straight into the main event. I want that main event to have title implications on the line. Does it have to have the biggest amount of title implications? Absolutely not. But I want the winner and losers to have some sort of consequences moving into the title picture. So that main event has to have some sort of title implications. Moving down to the 4th thing on the list, seeing the UFC like almost do this for pay-per-views instead of non-pay-per-view cards, which I don't really get. I want to see a lot of highlighted prospects on these non-pay-per-view events. Yes, you know, we can build up the prospects, and then once they're ready to be on a pay-per-view to get more eyes on them, then we can do that. But I want to see a lot of prospects on non-pay-per-view Vegas cards. Moving down to the 5th thing, I don't want to see a single fighter on a multi-fight losing streak on that main card. You know, yes, maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh. There will be very few exceptions allowed, but for the most part, I don't want to see a main card pretty much filled up with nothing but fighters on losing streaks. We've been seeing that way too often recently. We've been seeing fighters on main cards that are on a 2-fight losing streak. I don't want to see that. Unless the 2-fight losing streak are against nothing but killers, like a Charles Oliveira, for an example, a Beneil Dariush, a Kaimon Simon, an up-and-coming prospect. Unless it's like examples like that, I don't want to see them on a main card. They can go on the prelims, but not the main card. Then finally, you know, the UFC do this on occasion. Sometimes it's 5-4, sometimes it's 5-5, but I want there to be a 6-fight main card and a 6-fight prelim card. So that being said, that's all the points that I have for the UFC. Now, let's make this damn card, because this is what a non-pay-per-view fight card should look like. Let's start with the main event. Welterweight division. Title implications on the line for both of these fighters. Both of these fighters, if they lose, more likely than not, we're not seeing them go into title contention. This is practically their very last run at the title. Talking about number 9 ranked Stephen Wonderboy Thompson taking on number 10th ranked Michael Page. And yeah, an absolute barn burner of a fight. Yes, both of these guys have said that maybe their style will cancel each other out and it won't be as fun of a matchup that we're all thinking it could be. But put this in front of a crowd, promote it as the best striker versus the best striker. Yes, you can have this on a pay-per-view, but at the end of the day, I don't want to see all these greedy pay-per-view events. We need to spread the love to these weaker non-pay-per-view events. Let's keep moving on. For this one, I actually have 2 fights, both of them in the lightweight division, mainly because I didn't want to have 2 lightweight top 25 fights on this card. You can either do number 15 ranked Jalen Turner taking on number 21 Joel Alvarez, the battle of the weight bullies. Both of these guys way over 6 foot in that lightweight division. It would just be a freak show to watch, which would be one of the selling points, I'm not gonna lie. Or you can do number 23 ranked Mayabik Oralbai, the caveman himself, taking on number 24 Thiago Moises. I believe Moises is on a single fight losing streak, so that's all fine as long as it's not like a multi-fight losing streak. Moving down, we got in that light heavyweight division. Number 16th, Alonzo Manyfield. He's 15-4. His record is 15-4. He's 8-4 in the UFC versus number 18, Ion Cutelaba. Cutelaba, a fan-friendly fighter, hasn't been looking the greatest as of recently, but always shows up to put on a performance. He's 17-10, but in the UFC, he's 6-9. So yeah, a little bit struggling here and there. As you guys will see down into the prelims, I wouldn't be mad having some, fighters on a pretty decent losing streak be a make it or break it type of fight. I wouldn't be mad if they implement that as well, but we'll get to that once we get down into those prelims. Moving down, flyweight division. CJ Vergara, 12-5 in the UFC. He's 3-3, taking on Rai Tatsura, 10-0. He's 1-0 in the UFC. A perfect prospect. CJ Vergara, he's not a prospect. He's kind of like in the middle ground of an old vet and on the bottom end of a prospect, but mainly this is targeted towards the prospect of Ray. We shouldn't have 2 prospects fighting each other, although that would be great. That would just cancel out one of the prospects. You want to build both of them up. So moving down, bantamweight division, Brady Heisan, 7-2. He's 2-1 in the UFC versus Muyin Gafrov, 19-6. He's 1-2 in the UFC. Not the greatest record. We're mainly focusing on that prospect of Brady, but moving down, we gotta have some women fights in here too, can't just all have men fights. I do have a decent chunk of women MMA fights. I think I have 3 total. But opening up this main card in that women's flyweight division, we have Lauren Murphy, 15-6, 7-6 in the UFC. Pretty old vet in the UFC. She's pretty much just a gatekeeper to see if you're gonna be anything great in this women's flyweight division, taking on Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva, 17-5. She's 5-0 in the UFC, so she's a prospect we're looking out in this fight. Then moving down to those prelims. Main event of those prelims, heavyweight division. Mick Parkin taking on Thomas Peterson. Mick Parson, obviously, training partner of Tom Aspinall. Yes, you can argue having him on a Tom Aspinall fight card is more important than having him on a prelim of a non-pay-per-view event. Yes, I understand that, but just for argument's sake, yes, we can put him here. Plus, who knows the next time Tom Aspinall is going to be fighting, because that heavyweight division is just a logjam of shit right now, to be honest. But moving down, women's strawweight division. Both of these women's could be considered, a little bit of a prospect in that strawweight division, but it's women's strawweight division, so take that with a grain of salt. We have Jacqueline Amorim taking on Josephine Kunson. Then in that light heavyweight division, we have Marcin Prashino, 17-8. He's 4-6 in the UFC versus Omar Sky, 10-0, 1-0 in the UFC. Obviously, for the prospects, we're looking at Omar Sky. Then flyweight division, Victor Altamirano. He's 12-4, but 2-3 in the UFC, taking on Calvin Borjas, who is 9-3, but in the UFC, 0-2. This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying, a loser packs their bag. There needs to be some sort of stakes in the UFC now. The UFC has Dana White's Contender Series, so it's not going to be like they're struggling to get new fighters. So They have, in my opinion, they've oversigned. They have way too many guys on the rosters with just terrible records. So I want to see some stakes, especially in these prelims of non-pay-per-view events. I want there to be some stakes. So for this fight, loser packs their bags and goes home. Kevin Borjas, again, 0-2 in the UFC. Victor, 2-3. Victor, I'm pretty sure, is on like a 2-fight losing streak. And same with Borjas, obviously, because he hasn't won. But yeah, loser packs their bags, goes home. Then flyweight division, same thing here. Mainly on the other side, we have Chris Padilla. You can look at this guy as a prospect, I guess. He's 14-6, but in the UFC is 1-0, taking on his Flowers, 12-8. He is 0-3 in the UFC. Last chance for Flowers. If he can't make anything in this fight, cut his ass. His ass is getting shipped over to bare knuckle. Then, to open up the entire card, women's bantamweight division. I don't want it to just be some scrubs opening up the card. It has to have some sort of stakes, you know. So we have in the women's bantamweight division, again, it has to have some sort of entertainment, which is kind of funny when the opener is a bantamweight fight, but it has some decent implications moving forward for both of these girls, because Nora Cornell, she is 8-1, but in the UFC 2-0 undefeated, taking on Tanira Lisboa, 7-2, but in the UFC she's 2-0. So battle of the undefeateds in the UFC, you know, there's just little things like that that makes a fight card just slightly more entertaining. And yeah, Dana White, hope you've been listening. My Twitter is down below, so if you got any questions or you need any help with this, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter in the DMs. And yeah, guys, let me know in the comments below, what do we think of this fight card? If this fight card got announced sometime next month, what are we feeling? Do you guys agree or disagree with my takes for how these UFC non-pay-per-view events should be scheduled? Because I think, you know, have it this way, you would generate so much more buzz for these events. Because to be honest, it does seem like at times the UFC is just sick of trying to grow. But follow this formula, best believe they're gonna grow like crazy, and I'll be taking 25% of all revenue that goes up during the period of when this video goes live till the next few years. I'll be expecting my check in the mail. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. We are on that goal to get to 1,000 subscribers, so you guys haven't yet, leave a like on this video and subscribe with those post notifications turned on so you never miss any rare matchmaking or me just helping out the UFC in general. And yeah, there's really not that much else left to say except for I will see you guys in my next video.